My sister accused me of marrying my husband for money. An hour later, my father urged him to divorce me. By nightfall, her lie unraveled. She was secretly in love with his brother. What if the people you love most, the ones who raised you, secretly believe the worst about you? What if your own sister tried to tear your life apart, and they actually let her? That's what happened to me. And it all started with a phone call that stopped my heart. What? My foot slammed on the brake, nearly sending me into the car ahead. The voice on the other end of the line was my husband Ethan's, steady and controlled, but beneath it, I could practically hear his fury seething. Your sister just told me you only married me for the money. She said you never loved me, and I was just a paycheck to you. My hand was shaking so violently, I had to wrench the car into the nearest parking lot. Ethan, you know that's not true. I know, Lauren. I know, he replied, his voice softening just slightly. I'm not calling because I believe her. I'm calling because of what she said as she left. I didn't think things could get any worse. He was about to prove me wrong. What exactly did she say? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She said, your parents deserve to know what kind of daughter they raised. She promised to go over there right now and tell them the truth about you. My blood ran cold. My parents, especially my mother, with whom I'd spent years painstakingly rebuilding a fractured relationship after a chaotic childhood. Last Christmas, my dad had finally looked me in the eye and said he was proud of the woman I'd become. Savannah was about to walk into their house and tell them their daughter was a fraud, a gold digger, that everything I'd painstakingly built, the degree I worked 4 jobs to pay for, the career I carved from nothing, the marriage I treasured was a lie. How long ago did she leave? I demanded, already pulling back onto the road, cutting off a minivan with a frantic honk. 7 minutes, maybe 12. Their house was 24 minutes from Ethan's office, 17 from where I was now. If I passed every yellow light, I pressed the gas harder, my heart pounding. I'm going to beat her there. Lauren, I have to be there first. The desperation in my voice cracked. I despised it. I'll meet you there, Ethan said, his voice firm again. I'm leaving now. I hung up, knuckles white on the steering wheel, and drove. I made it. By about 5 minutes. Pulling into my parents' driveway, seeing no sign of Savannah's car. A wave of dizzying relief washed over me. Just enough time. Enough time to warn them, to get ahead of whatever twisted narrative Savannah was planning to spin. I walked through the front door. The familiar scent of my childhood home, usually a comfort, now a suffocating weight. Mom was wiping down an already sparkling clean counter, her towel. Dad was engrossed in his tablet. They both looked up, surprised to see me. I never just showed up anymore. Lauren. Mom put down her rag, her brow furrowing. What are you doing here? I took a deep breath. Calm. Strategic. Something happened between Savannah and Ethan. I wanted to talk with you before. Mom's face hardened. Instantly. Her eyes narrowed, her mouth a thin, grim line I remembered all too well from my youth. What did you do to make her upset? I blinked. My breath caught. I didn't. And I'm trying to tell you. Dad sighed, setting his tablet aside. Here we go. What is it this time? This time, I hadn't even finished a single sentence. I hadn't even gotten to the point, and I was already the defendant. Already the problem. A cold, heavy feeling settled in my gut. 22 years had passed, but nothing had changed. Savannah was upset in this house, and Lauren was to blame. That was the rule. It had always been the rule. I opened my mouth to try again, but the front door swung open. Savannah. She burst in, crying, shaking, mascara streaming down her face. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse to her chest like a shield. The performance was flawless. Mom rushed to her instantly. Savannah, honey, what's wrong? What happened? She wrapped her arms around her, leading her to the kitchen table, glancing over her shoulder at me with that accusatory look, as if I had somehow caused this. Dad stood, hovering, his face etched with concern. Are you okay, sweetheart? Do you need some water? Sit down. Sit down. Let me finish what I was saying. I tried to interject, my voice desperate. Mom spun around. Can't you see how upset she is? Stop obsessing over yourself for once. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there, mouth agape, watching my parents fuss over Savannah. water, back rubs, murmuring comforts. Savannah soaked it all in, tears streaming, looking so fragile and wounded you might have thought she was at death's door. Finally, she took a shaky breath, looking up at our parents through wet, red-rimmed eyes. "I didn't want to say anything," she whispered, her voice small and broken. "I've been carrying this for so long and I can't anymore." Mom squeezed her hand. "You can tell us anything, sweetheart. Whatever it is, we are here." Savannah shot me a quick glance, and in those tear-filled eyes, I caught a flash of something cold, something satisfied. Then she turned back to our parents. "Lauren told me. She only married Ethan for his money." She laughed about it. Said she'd finally made it out. She wiped her face, her voice breaking perfectly. I didn't want to believe it either. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my parents' expressions morph, saw them stare at me as if I were a stranger, as if I were exactly who they had always suspected I was. "That's a lie," I blurted, my voice harsher than I intended. "That is a complete lie. I never said that. I have never said anything like that." Savannah shook her head sadly. "I didn't want to believe it either, Lauren. But you mentioned it. You laughed at how easy it was to make him fall for you. You claimed you'd never have to worry about money again. That never happened." I was practically shouting now. I ripped out my phone, scrolling frantically. "Look at my bank account. This is money I saved before meeting Ethan. For jobs during college. I paid off my student loans myself. This is my salary from my job, which I earned on my own merit." I shoved the phone towards my mother. "Look at this. I built it myself. I don't need anybody's money." Mom didn't even glance at the screen. She just looked at me with tired, weary disappointment, as if I were a child trying to lie my way out of trouble. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "Anyone can create a fake number, Lauren. You were always good at portraying yourself as the victim." The words made me physically ill. I had receipts. I had proof. But they didn't matter. They didn't matter because my parents had already made up their minds. They had decided what they believed long before I ever walked through that door. The front door opened again. Ethan. He must have shattered every speed limit to get here so quickly. He took in the scene in an instant. Savannah sobbing at the table with my parents hovering over her, and me standing alone, phone in hand, jaw clenched. He walked straight to me, placing a hand on my back. "I got here as fast as I could. What did I miss?" "Savannah told them I married you for your money," I explained, my voice flat. "She claims I confessed it to her and laughed about it." Ethan's face hardened. He turned to my parents. "That is insane. I've been married to Lauren for 4 years. I've seen her stress over her own bills. I've seen her refuse to let me help her pay off her student loans. She insisted on dividing everything evenly, even though I told her she didn't have to. She has never asked me for money. Not once." Mom shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with pity. "She has you fooled, sweetheart. She's good at it." Ethan stared at her, genuinely stunned. "I'm sorry, what?" Dad stood up from the table, walking towards my husband. He didn't even look at me. It was as if I wasn't in the room anymore. "Son," he said, his voice laced with patronizing advice, "I'm going to give you some advice. Divorce her. Get out while you can before she bleeds you dry." I stepped between them, physically placing my body between my father and my husband. "Stop. You can't talk to my husband about my marriage as if I'm not standing here. This is my life. He knows me better than you ever have." Dad stared at Ethan, completely ignoring me like I was furniture. "She did it to us too," he said, still to Ethan. "She made us believe she had changed. We assumed she had outgrown all of her childhood drama. But people don't change." Not really. Profound shift happened inside me then. Something that had been tightly coiled for years finally snapped. "Drama," I reiterated, the word tasting bitter. "Is that what you call it?" Mom's face tightened. "Lauren, don't start." "No," I pressed. "I'd like to understand. Mom, what drama are you talking about? What did I do that was so unforgivable?" Mom rose from the table. Her voice was quiet, almost chilling in its calmness. "Do you remember what I'm talking about? When you were 17, you stood in our kitchen, looked at me and your father and said, 'You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise children.'" She let the accusation hang in the air. A poisonous smoke. We forgave you for that, she added, her voice dripping with resentment. We welcomed you back into the family. We were proud of you as we watched you build your own little life. And now I discover you've been lying to that man since the day you met him. She shook her head. You always had to turn everything into a catastrophe. Couldn't simply be a part of this family without tearing it apart. You had to drag everyone through your drama and pretend like you were the only one suffering. She looked at Ethan, then back at me. Now she's doing the same thing to you. I stood there letting the words wash over me. And then something clicked into place. Something I should have seen years ago. These weren't parents who were fooled by Savannah. These weren't parents who were confused or misled. These were parents who had been waiting for permission to stop pretending they'd forgiven me. Waiting for an excuse to go back to treating me like the problem child, the difficult one. The daughter who saw too clearly and said too much. Savannah didn't trick them. She just handed them the key to a door they'd been standing in front of for 22 years. I took Ethan's hand. We're leaving. I walked toward the front door, but stopped in front of Savannah. She looked up at me with those tear-stained cheeks and that wounded expression that I now knew was pure performance. I kept my voice low, calm, cold. I don't know why you're doing this, Savannah, but I'm going to find out. Her eyes went wide, her jaw clenched. A bead of sweat formed at her hairline. For just a second the mask slipped, and I saw something underneath. Fear. Real fear. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I saw it. And I was going to find out what she was hiding. I walked out of my parents' house with my husband beside me. Behind us I could hear my mother calling my name, telling me I was being dramatic, telling me I was proving her point. I didn't look back. The relationship I'd spent years rebuilding was now ash. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. Savannah had something to hide. Something that scared her enough to make her destroy my life just to keep it buried. And I was going to dig until I found it. The car was silent for the first 6 minutes. I couldn't stop shaking. Ethan kept both hands on the wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw so tight I could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. He was the first one to speak, his voice low and hard. They didn't even look at the bank statements. Your mother didn't glance at the screen. Your father waved it off like you were showing him a coupon. They didn't want to know the truth, Lauren. They wanted permission to treat you like garbage again. And Savannah handed it to them on a silver platter. I pressed my palms against my eyes. I could still hear my mother's voice. You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise kids. 22 years and she'd been saving that, waiting to throw it back in my face. And Savannah, Ethan continued, his anger building. Crying on cue, shaking like a leaf. That was a performance. I've seen better acting in car commercials. She had that lie ready. She practiced it. She knew exactly what she was going to say, and exactly how she was going to say it. He slammed his palm against the steering wheel. What kind of person does that to their own sister? I didn't have an answer. That was the part one couldn't wrap my head around. Savannah and I weren't best friends, but we were family. We had history. I'd held her hair back when she got food poisoning at her bachelorette party. I'd helped her pick out her wedding dress. I'd shown up for every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. And she repaid me by trying to blow up my marriage and turn my parents against me. But why? I said out loud, the question, a raw ache in my throat. What does she gain from this? Even if my parents believe her, even if she destroys my reputation with them, what does she get? Ethan was quiet for a second, then glanced at me. I've been thinking about that. And there's something I never told you because I thought I was imagining it. I looked at him, my full attention on his serious face. The way Savannah acts around Carter, he began. Mason's brother. He paused, making sure I was following. Mason was Savannah's husband. I've noticed it for a while. She's different when he's in the room. She finds reasons to sit next to him. She laughs too hard at his jokes. She's always volunteering to help him with stuff. I frowned. Carter? I barely know him. He's at family stuff sometimes, but we've never really talked. Ethan nodded. Exactly. You barely notice him. But Savannah? She notices every time he walks through a door. I've seen it at barbecues, at holiday dinners, at Mason's birthday last year. The second Carter shows up, Savannah transforms. She's louder, more animated. She touches her hair more. He shook his head. I told myself I was reading into it, but after today I don't think I was. I sat with that for a moment. Savannah and Carter. It didn't make sense. Savannah was married to Mason. She'd been married to Mason for years. They had a house together, a life together. You think she's capable of cheating? I asked, the idea feeling foreign and disturbing. Ethan scoffed. After what I just watched her do to you, I think she's capable of anything. He reached over and took my hand. His grip was firm, steady, a silent anchor. We're going to figure out what she's hiding together. Whatever game she's playing, we're going to find out the rules. I squeezed his hand back. Okay, let's start with Mason. We pulled up to Mason and Savannah's house 24 minutes later. Lights were on downstairs. Mason's truck was in the driveway. Savannah's car was gone. She was probably still at my parents' house, basking in her twisted victory. How do you want to play this? Ethan asked, putting the car in park. Careful, I said, a new resolve hardening my voice. I don't want to blow up his life until we know exactly what we're dealing with. Got it. I'll follow your lead, but if he knows something, I'm pushing. We walked up to the front door. I knocked. Mason answered in a t-shirt and sweatpants, a beer in one hand, confusion etched all over his face. Lauren? Ethan. He looked between us, bewildered. What are you guys doing here? I kept my voice light, feigning casualness. We were in the area. Thought we'd stop by. Is Savannah home? No, he said, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. She went to your parents' place a few hours ago. Said something about needing to talk to them about. He stopped, studied my face. What's happening? Ethan stepped in. Can we come in? We need to talk. Mason's confusion deepened, but he moved aside. We followed him into the living room and sat on the couch while he settled into the armchair across from us. You're scaring me, Mason said, taking a long swig of his beer. Is anyone hurt? Is this Savannah? Savannah's fine, I said, trying to sound reassuring. At least physically. But something happened today, and we're trying to figure it out. We hoped you could help us. Mason took another drink. Help me? How? Ethan leaned forward. How are things between you and Savannah? Honestly. Mason let out a hollow laugh. That is a loaded question. Things are, I don't know. Fine, I suppose. We're fine. Fine doesn't sound fine, Ethan observed gently. Mason remained quiet for a moment, looking down at the bottle in his hands. She's been different for years. I don't know how to describe it. Sometimes I feel as if I'm living with a roommate rather than a wife. She's always somewhere else in her mind. Even though she's sitting right next to me, she's not really present. How are they different? I asked gently. Distant. Checked out. He shrugged, a deep sadness in his eyes. I try to plan date nights, but she always finds a reason to cancel. I suggest a weekend trip and she gets a headache, or she's too tired, or something happened at work. I ask her if she's happy and she says yes, but it doesn't show in her eyes. He took another drink. I keep thinking I'm doing something wrong, like I'm not exciting enough, successful enough, or whatever. But I don't know how to fix something if I don't even know what's broken. My chest tightened. Mason was a good man, kind, loyal, and he had spent years blaming himself for something that was never his fault. When did it start? Ethan asked. The distance. Mason thought about it. I don't know. It's difficult to pinpoint. Perhaps it was always there, and I just didn't notice at first. He paused, frowning. Actually, that's not true. She was different at first, warmer and more present. But then something changed, and she retreated completely. He fell silent, his eyes unfocused, as if scrolling through memories, looking for a pattern he had missed. Then his expression shifted. Do you know what's weird? Mason spoke slowly, almost to himself. She's not like that with Carter. Ethan and I remained perfectly still. What do you mean? Ethan inquired carefully. My brother, Mason continued, shaking his head. When Carter is around, she is, I'm not sure, alive. That's the only word for it. He shook his head again, as if the realization was just hitting him. She laughs and talks more. She remembers every detail about his life. His job, hobbies, schedule. She insisted on driving 3 hours to his housewarming party last spring, despite my work deadline. But when my college friend came to town, she developed a migraine and was unable to attend dinner. He put down his beer and rubbed his face with both hands. I'd never thought about it like this before. But when Carter needs help with something, she's in the car before I can finish my sentence. When I need help with something, she has 100 excuses. Ethan looked at me. I gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Mason, Ethan said, his voice gentle but direct. Has Savannah ever spoken about her feelings for Carter? Anything that felt more than simply being a good sister-in-law? Mason's face hardened. What are you asking me? We ask because... No. Mason stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. No, you cannot come into my home and inquire about my marriage only to imply that my wife has feelings for my brother. That is insane. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. Savannah is many things, but she isn't. She wouldn't. You are wrong. Whatever you think, you're mistaken. Savannah loves me. She married me. We live a life together. 7 years. 7 years of marriage, and you're going to tell me she's been pining for Carter the entire time? That is crazy. That's absolutely insane. Mason stopped, breathing heavily. And even if she did have something for him, which she does not, what is the point? Why are you here? Why are you asking me this? His voice crackled with growing distress. What happened today that prompted you to drive to my house and blow up my entire life? I stood up gently. Mason, please sit down. We need to tell you what happened. Then tell me. He started shouting now. Stop dancing around the issue and simply say it. Savannah went to Ethan today, I said, maintaining a steady, even voice though my heart was pounding. She told him that I married him for his money. She said I confessed to her that I laughed when I finally made it out. Mason froze. What? It is a lie. All of it. I never said that. I've never considered it. Savannah told Ethan, and then she told my parents the same thing. My voice wavered despite my best efforts, but I pressed on. My parents believed her. They told Ethan to divorce me. They claimed I had been deceiving everyone for years. Your wife walked into my parents' house crying and shaking, and gave a performance that destroyed my relationship with my family in 24 minutes. Mason's face turned white, a sickening shade of disbelief. No, that is not true. Savannah wouldn't. We watched her do it, Ethan said, his voice cold. Sobbing on cue and trembling like a victim. She had everything rehearsed. She knew exactly what to say and how to deliver it. Mason slowly lowered himself back into the chair, as if his legs could no longer support him. He stared at the floor, his world crumbling around him. Why? He finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would she do that? That's what we're trying to figure out, I explained, leaning forward, wanting him to understand we weren't attacking him. That is why we are here. That is why we asked about Carter. Because we don't understand why Savannah would try to end my marriage, unless there's something else going on that we can't see. Mason remained quiet for a long time. He looked up, his eyes now wet, filled with a profound sense of loss. I'm coming with you, Mason abruptly stated, his voice now firm, a spark of resolve in his broken gaze. I will accompany you wherever you go next. Ethan shook his head. I don't think that's a good idea. Not yet. If Savannah returns home and you're not present, she'll notice something is wrong. We need you to behave normally until we figure out what we're dealing with. Mason's jaw tightened in anger. So I'm supposed to sit here and pretend everything is fine? Assume my wife didn't just try to blow up my sister-in-law's life. For the time being, I said. Only for now. We'll tell you everything we find out. I promise. Mason stared at the wall. The silence was so long I thought he wouldn't respond. Then he looked at me, his eyes hollow, utterly lost. I don't even know who I'm married to, he said quietly. I thought I did. But I don't. We left Mason's house in silence. I kept seeing his face, the confusion turning to anger, then to something worse, that hollow, defeated look when he said he had no idea who his wife was. That was brutal, Ethan admitted finally. He knew nothing about any of it. He knew there was something wrong, I explained, piecing it together. He simply couldn't name it. All those things he mentioned, the distance, the canceled plans, the way she lights up around Carter. He'd noticed them for years. He simply didn't want to know what it meant. And now we've handed him a box full of evidence and asked him to look. Ethan looked at me. But we still don't know why. We know Savannah has a relationship with Carter, or at least she thinks she does. We know her marriage is hollow. But what does any of this have to do with you? That's why we need to speak with Carter. Carter lived in an apartment complex about 17 minutes away. Ethan called him on the way, saying we needed to discuss something important. Carter sounded perplexed but agreed to meet us. He buzzed us up and greeted us at his door with a puzzled look. Lauren? Ethan. He shook Ethan's hand and offered me an awkward half-hug. This is unexpected. Is everything okay? His apartment was clean and simple. Bachelor furniture, a gaming setup in the corner. He offered us water and sat down across from us, looking genuinely lost. So what's going on? You sounded serious on the phone. Ethan didn't waste time. We need to ask you about Savannah. Carter's eyebrows shot up. Savannah? What about her? How did you two meet? How did you two meet? I asked, my voice calm, direct. Carter looked surprised by the question. Savannah? We met years ago, before she and Mason got together. Actually, we worked at the same company for a few months. We'd grab lunch sometimes, talk in the break room. She was cool. He shrugged. Then I introduced her to Mason at a company happy hour, and they hit it off. The rest is history. Ethan and I exchanged a look that spoke volumes. So you knew her first? Ethan said slowly, a dawning realization in his voice. And then you introduced her to your brother. Yeah, I thought they'd be good together. Mason was going through a dry spell, and Savannah was single and seemed like his type. Carter smiled at the memory. Honestly, I felt like a pretty good matchmaker when they started dating. 7 years married now. I take full credit. The smile faded when he saw our faces. Why? What's going on, Carter? Ethan said directly. Does Savannah have feelings for you? Carter's face went through 40 different moods all at once. Confusion, then discomfort, then something that looked like a recognition he'd been actively avoiding. There have been moments, he admitted slowly, his voice hesitant. Things I brushed off. The way she hugs me too long. The way she always sits next to me at dinners. The way she looks at me sometimes. He shook his head. But she's married to my brother. Why would she marry Mason if she... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. And that's when it hit me. The timeline. Carter met Savannah first. They worked together, had lunch together. Then he introduced her to Mason. And she married him anyway. Oh my God, I said quietly, the realization a sickening jolt. She married Mason to stay close to you. The words came out like I was hearing them for the first time myself because I was... Carter's face contorted into something ugly. First confusion, then understanding, then disgust. No, that's sick. That's my brother. She's been married to my brother for 7 years. She's been sleeping in his bed, eating dinner with him, being his wife. His voice cracked, filled with revulsion. And the whole time she was what? Waiting. Waiting for me to notice her? Waiting for me to make a move. He stood up and paced across the room, running a hand through his hair. I introduced them. I set them up. I thought I was doing something good and she used it. She used Mason to get to me. She's been playing both of us this entire time. He turned back to us, his face red with a growing fury. Does Mason know? Does he know his wife married him because she couldn't have me? We just came from his house, Ethan said. He knows something's wrong. He doesn't know all of it yet. Carter let out a sound that was half laugh, half groan. 7 years. 7 years of holidays and birthdays and family dinners, and she's been sitting there thinking about me while my brother holds her hand. He looked physically ill. That's disgusting. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. We couldn't console him no matter how hard we tried. We just had to let him process it all on his own. We left Carter's apartment with the picture almost complete. In the car, Ethan was quiet for a minute. Then he said, So Savannah's been in love with Carter for years. She married Mason to stay close to him. Carter never felt the same way. Her whole marriage is a lie. And she's miserable, I added. the pieces clicking together with a chilling clarity. Mason said she's been distant for years. Checked out. She's trapped in a life she never wanted, waiting for a man who's never going to want her back. Ethan nodded slowly. Then he looked at me, a thoughtful expression on his face. But you're not. I frowned. What? You're not trapped. You're not miserable. You didn't marry me for access to someone else. His voice was careful, like he was working something out, making sure he understood it fully. You married me because you love me, and we're actually happy. She can't stand it, I said slowly, the full, ugly truth now laid bare. She's been living a lie for 7 years, watching Carter not want her, stuck in a marriage that means nothing. And then she looks at me and you, and sees everything she doesn't have. Ethan finished my thought, his voice laced with understanding. Real love. A real marriage. Happiness she'll never get because the man she wants doesn't even see her. We sat with that for a moment, the weight of the revelation pressing down on us. I could feel the shape of it now. The why. It was right there, just out of reach, waiting for confirmation. I think I understand, I said quietly. But I need to hear her say it. Ethan looked at me, a question in his eyes. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to have a conversation with my sister. I pulled out my phone and texted Mason. Is Savannah home yet? The response came back in seconds. Yeah, just got back. Why? I typed back. We know why she lied. We're coming over. Ethan glanced at me as he started the car. You sure you want to do this tonight? I've never been more sure of anything. The drive to Mason's house felt shorter than before. Maybe because I knew exactly what I was walking into this time. No more confusion, no more questions, just answers. I was going to drag them out of my sister, whether she wanted to give them or not. Mason opened the door before we even knocked. His face was tight, jaw clenched. He'd been waiting. She's in the living room, he said quietly, his voice devoid of emotion. She doesn't know you're coming. Good. I walked past him into the house. Savannah was on the couch, shoes off, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't just tried to blow up my entire life a few hours ago. She looked up when I walked in and her face shifted. Surprise first, then something that looked almost like amusement. Lauren? Couldn't stay away. She set her phone down and crossed her arms, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. Let me guess. You came to tell me I'm wrong? To explain yourself? To beg me to take it back? She shook her head. It won't work. Mom and Dad know the truth now. Everyone knows. You're right, I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the tremor in my hands. Everyone's about to know the truth. Something flickered across her face then. Ethan came in behind me and stood by the door. A silent, imposing presence. Mason moved into the room, positioning himself where he could see both of us. Savannah looked between us, and her smile finally faltered. What's this? This, I said, stepping closer, is me telling you what I know. I kept my voice calm, deliberate. You knew Carter first. You worked at the same company. You grabbed lunch together, talked in the break room. You had feelings for him. Savannah's face completely changed. The amusement drained out of it, replaced by a sudden, stark fear. What exactly are you talking about? Carter introduced you to Mason, his brother. And you married Mason anyway. I watched her carefully, every twitch, every flicker. You married him, to stay close to Carter. That's insane. Savannah spat, but her voice had gone thin, a high, reedy sound. That's absolutely insane. I married Mason because I love him. You've been distant for years, Mason said from across the room. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it cut through the tension like a knife. You cancel every date night. You're never present. But when Carter needs something, you're out the door before I finish my sentence. Savannah whipped around to face him, her eyes wide with panic. Mason, you can't possibly believe. I asked you once if you were happy, Mason continued, his voice cracking with a pain I could feel. You said yes, but it never reached your eyes. I thought I was the problem. I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was never even the point. That's not true. Savannah stood up, her voice rising. I adore you. I married you. I've been with you for 7 years. 7 years of sitting next to Carter at every dinner, I said, my voice cold and hard. 7 years of remembering his birthday, his hobbies, his schedule. 7 years of driving 3 hours to his housewarming party while Mason had a work deadline. 7 years of waiting for him to notice you. Savannah's eyes were wild now, darting between me and Mason and Ethan, looking for an exit that wasn't there. This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything. I was just being a good sister-in-law. Say it, Savannah. My voice was dangerously low. Tell Mason why you really married him. Tell him what you've been waiting for. I haven't been waiting for anything. Her voice pitched higher, becoming shrill. This is ridiculous. You're all insane. I'm a good wife. I've been a good wife for 7 years. Then why does Carter have 300 plus texts from you? Ethan's voice was a sudden, sharp interruption. Random articles. Checking in. Remembering every detail of his life. Because I'm friendly. Because I'm a good sister-in-law. Is that a crime now? Savannah was pacing now, her hands shaking, her composure completely gone. You helped him move. I pressed. You bought him gifts. You drove 3 hours to his housewarming. So what? So what if I'm nice to him? So what if I show up for family? That doesn't mean anything. You hug him too long, Mason said quietly, his voice broken. You always sit next to him. You light up when he walks in the room. I've seen it for years. I just didn't want to believe it. Mason, stop. Savannah spun toward him, her eyes wild, desperate. You're letting them poison you against me. They're lying. Lauren's always been jealous of me. She's always wanted to tear me down. Jealous of what? I stepped closer to her, my own anger finally breaking through. Your hollow marriage? Your checked-out husband? The man you've been waiting 7 years for, who doesn't even know you exist. Shut up. Savannah's face was crimson now, tears streaming, snot dripping from her nose. You don't know anything. You don't know what it's like. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I was right in her face now, my voice laced with fury. Explain why you married Mason. Explain why you've been obsessing over Carter. Explain why you tried to destroy my life today. I wasn't trying to destroy your life. She was backing up, her hands pulling at her hair, completely unraveled. None of this was supposed to happen. I just wanted. What? Mason's voice boomed through the room, cutting her off. What did you want, Savannah? What have you been wanting for 7 years, while I've been killing myself trying to make you happy? Savannah was cornered against the wall now, her chest heaving, her eyes darting between all of us like a trapped animal. You don't understand. None of you understand. I tried to love you, Mason. I really tried, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop thinking about. Who? Mason demanded, his voice raw. I didn't mean for it to be like this. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her face, a truly pathetic sight. I thought it would go away. I thought if I just stayed close enough, if I was patient enough, he would finally see me. Who, Savannah? Mason's voice cracked, full of anguish. I can't say it because I love him. The words exploded out of her, raw and guttural, like she'd been holding them in for years. Because she had. I love Carter. I've always loved Carter. From the first day I met him, I knew he was the one. And then he introduced me to Mason. And I thought if I was close enough, if I was part of his family, he would realize we were meant to be together. The room fell completely quiet. Savannah's chest was heaving, her face red and streaked with tears. She looked like someone who had just watched her whole life collapse, because in that moment she had. Mason made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach, a gut-wrenching gasp. Savannah spun toward him, reaching out, desperate. Mason, I didn't mean. It's not what you think. You just said you love my brother. Mason's voice was barely a whisper now, filled with devastating clarity. You've been married to me for 7 years, and you just said you love my brother. I love you too. I love both of you. It's complicated. It's not complicated. Mason stepped back from her, revulsion in his eyes. You married me to get close to him. That's what they're saying. And you just confirmed it. Savannah was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I thought if I was around him enough, if I was part of his family, he would see me. He would realize we were meant to be together. I just needed more time. 7 years, Mason's voice cracked. You needed 7 years of my life, of our marriage, of me thinking something was wrong with me. He turned away from her, as if he couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was sick. And I still needed one more answer. Why me, Savannah? She looked at me through her tears, mascara running, just like it had at our parents' house. But this time it was real. No performance. Just raw, ugly pain. Why go after my marriage? What did I ever do to you? Savannah laughed. It was an ugly sound, broken and hollow. You didn't do anything, Lauren. That's the problem. You didn't do anything and you got everything. What exactly are you talking about? You married for love. She spat the word like it was poison. You found someone who actually wants you, who chose you, who looks at you like you're the only person in the room. She gestured at Ethan, who was watching her with a mixture of pity and contempt. He's never going to look at someone else and wish he was with them. He's never going to spend 7 years waiting for someone better to notice him. He actually loves you. Her voice broke completely. And I have to watch it. Every holiday, every family dinner. I have to watch you be happy while I'm stuck in this. This prison I built for myself, waiting for a man who doesn't even know I exist. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing makeup. Do you know what that's like? To realize you wasted your entire life on someone who will never want you. And then look across the table at your sister, who has everything you'll never have. So you tried to destroy it? I said quietly, the pieces locking into place. You told Ethan I married him for money. You told our parents. You tried to make my marriage look fake. Because if your marriage was fake, Savannah screamed, her voice cracking with despair, then I wasn't alone. If you were just like me, if you married for money like I married for access, then I wasn't the only pathetic one. I wasn't the only one who wasted my life. We would be the same. Two sisters who made terrible choices, and I wouldn't have to feel so. She couldn't finish. She just stood there crying, arms wrapped around herself, like she was trying to hold her shattered self together. I understood now. All of it. Savannah didn't hate me. She wasn't trying to hurt me specifically. She just couldn't survive being the only sister with a fake marriage. If she could drag me down to her level, she wouldn't have to face what she'd done, or what she'd become alone. But my marriage isn't fake, I said, my voice firm, unwavering. I love Ethan. He loves me. We're happy. And nothing you say to our parents or anyone else is going to change that. Savannah looked at me with red-rimmed, vacant eyes. She had nothing left to say. Mason walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Savannah turned to him, disbelief etched on her tear-streaked face. Mason, please. Get out of my house. Mason's voice was flat, dead, devoid of any warmth. I'll have your stuff sent to wherever you end up, but I want you gone tonight. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered, clutching her purse. I don't care. Mason's voice was a chilling monotone. Go to your parents. Go to a hotel. Go to Carter for all I care. But you're not staying here. Not after this. Savannah looked at me one last time. I don't know what she was hoping to see. Sympathy, maybe. Some sisterly bond that would make me intervene. But I just looked back at her. She made her choice. Now she had to live with it. She grabbed her purse and walked out the door without another word. Mason stood in the doorway watching her go. Then he closed the door and leaned his forehead against it, his shoulders shaking slightly. 7 years, he said quietly, his voice hollow. I gave her 7 years. I'm sorry, Mason, I said, and I truly meant it. He was collateral damage in all of this. A good man who did nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong woman. He turned around and looked at me and Ethan, his eyes still brimming with unshed tears. Thank you for telling me. I needed to know. We left Mason standing in his living room, looking at the empty space where his marriage used to be. In the car, Ethan took my hand. You okay? I thought about it. My parents had effectively disowned me. My sister had tried to destroy my life. I'd spent the whole day uncovering a web of lies that went back 7 years. But I was sitting next to a man who never doubted me, who stood beside me through all of it, who loved me, actually loved me, and wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, I said, a soft, weary exhale. I'm okay. Ethan squeezed my hand, a comforting pressure. She tried to make what we have into something ugly. She failed. She did. Savannah wanted company in her misery. Instead, she ended up completely alone. It's a lot, right? This whole day was a lot. And honestly, I'm still processing it. Have you ever had someone you trusted betray you like this? Or watched your family side with the wrong person, even when the truth was staring them in the face? Tell me your stories in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think, and I could probably use some solidarity right now.